Ed. And thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity to talk about love. I love love. It's been so much fun to research it and read about it and try to answer the questions. The question of what can we find out about it in the literature, this incredible literature that so few people are aware of. That's I have the privilege of being able to dig into that literature and try to answer these questions. And I'll tell you, my ulterior motive here is get you all excited to read it yourself, because I can't wait to talk to you all about your interpretations of the same stuff I've been reading. Everyone will have a unique view, and so far you just get to hear mine. I really want to hear everybody's view. Oh, and happy Beltane. Today is a Celtic holiday. It's the 1st of May. It's actually, I think, celebrates fertility. So, well, we're talking about love. That kind of goes together. And I really appreciate you coming on. Such a nice day. You've got some nice air coming in the window, at least. I hope you got out in the sun and you got some of this incredible weather. Nicest day I've seen this year. There are a lot of questions about love that come up almost right away for me, and I'm sure for everybody else. What's going on with love? Why is there so much suffering with something that's so beautiful? You know, what are broken hearts about? Why doesn't love seem to last? Is there eternal love? Is there true love? Is love something that is limited and we have to struggle for or hold on to? You know, why do we want love so much? What does it mean to people? Is it the answer to the world's problems? That question is asked. Frankly, I'm no expert on love. My heart is held together with band-aids from many different adventures with love in the past, but I have a lot of good information for you, and since every single one of us I know is trying to solve this problem for ourselves. We all deal with love. We deal with relationships, we deal with sex, we deal with things that it doesn't matter what stage of evolution of consciousness we're at, everyone's struggling with this. So at least I hope I can give you the hints that Esoterics gives us. This information is primarily from Henry Lawrence's books, which, as Ed mentioned, are online, and he has his CD of them. They're also selling, for people who are old-fashioned, want actual books like this, they're selling the 2 that are in print out in the bookshop. So it also comes from Alice Bailey's books, these, and the Theosophical Writers, Besant and Leadbeater. Not so much Blavatsky, some, but the handouts have information about where you can find all this information, and contacts and groups where you can discuss this further and meditate with groups if that's something you're interested in. And I probably would have, I would have liked to even put more quotes in there. I couldn't, and I just kept stuffing more and more, and the pages kept growing. Finally, I said, okay, I've got to stop at 4 pages of the handout. Nobody's going to read 5 or 6 pages of quotes. But give those quotes a chance. They're pretty potent stuff. They're selected out of a lot of material. And I wish I had time just to read them and go over them. But there's so much else to cover. So we're going to start with the big picture. You know, science starts with the little details and tries to piece together a big theory out of that. But when you've got information such as we've got that's given to us from those who've gone beyond the human kingdom and solved all the problems we're trying to solve and are sharing the actual information about how things are, they can give us the big picture. And then we can look and see how the facts of our lives fit into that. So we're going to start with love in the cosmos. And what it says in the books is that love is on every plane of existence, that it bridges the planes of existence, and that this is the place where we struggle with it the most. When you get to the levels beyond the physical, emotional, and mental worlds, they're called the 3 worlds of humanity. When you get to the higher worlds, even the one right above the mental, love is simply taken for granted because every being there shares in the consciousness of and knows everything it knows about those worlds through identification with it as part of itself. Obviously, love is not in question there. There's no sense of separation or of loneliness or of antagonism. When there's perfect understanding, all those things go away. And there are many worlds beyond ours. We've talked about this in earlier talks, and I won't go into how many there are. But we're really just at the starting point of this evolution of consciousness that we're working on. And it's only as in the human kingdom we struggle with this, with love. When we get to the higher kingdoms, love is simply granted. It's there. Loneliness, gone. Particularly human kinds of suffering. They're of relatively short duration. It might be millions of years in the human kingdom for us, like a long time, but we have so much further to go. And we won't be doubting love any further. So, preliminary to any further discussion, there's a little exercise I like to do. My last two talks, we did this. It didn't sound familiar if you were here before. Let's take a moment to be aware of our consciousness. Lawrence says everything is matter, motion, and consciousness. Each of us is exercising our consciousness through our attention. When we are aware of our consciousness, truly self-conscious, choosing what we think, then we are actually reaching what humanity is capable of. I mean, most of the time, most people are in automatic consciousness. They're responding to things, they react, they don't think about their reactions, they just react. Their thoughts are coming and going and all sorts of... If you're truly self-conscious and aware of your thoughts, if you are observing your attention, you're tuning in on the self, the real self. The self is where the attention is. It's a kind of consciousness that can free you from a lot of stuff to really be truly self-conscious, because what most people don't like about themselves are the negative emotions that they experience and express and how they hurt other people around them. Those negative emotions are part of automatic consciousness. They're part of patterns of consciousness from millions of years ago, things that you picked up. When you are self-conscious, aware of your consciousness, you're not a victim to automatic consciousness. You're choosing. And choosing makes all the difference. It can speed your progress tremendously in all of the evolution of consciousness. Now, Lawrence talks about the law of unity. When he says that there's matter, motion, and consciousness, he says that that consciousness is actually one consciousness. It's all one. We have a part in it. We can only experience so much of it at a time. The limitation is really in our ability to experience very much at once. We'd be overwhelmed if our consciousness grew too fast or too much. There's so much to be aware of. Our senses are somewhat limited to this physical, emotional, mental reality. There's so much more that the restrictions on our consciousness are actually to our benefit. We need to gradually grow to expand our consciousness for our own safety. However, we get to have experiences, agape, the moments of enlightenment that people talk about, where their minds are just thrown wide open and they can sense their unity with all of nature. They know where they fit into things. They all make sense briefly. I mean, I hope everybody in this room has had that experience. If not, it's something that everybody will probably have sometime. It changes people permanently, I think, to have that, to realize that really it is one, actually. You get to actually experience it. You identify with everything around you and spread out into it. And of course that can't be sustained. As I mentioned, it's too much. You can't live in that state until you've really developed the capacity for it, and that takes going through solving all the problems we're trying to solve right now in our lives. But the law of unity says that not only is that possible, that's our ultimate destiny. All of us will achieve that kind of expansion of consciousness where we know through things, through identifying with, through sensing the oneness. When we work in the direction of unity, then we're working in the direction of the kingdoms beyond the human. Like I was saying, beyond human, we've got what's called the Buddhic plane, or the essential world, or World 46, all equivalent names for the world that is our next goal beyond the top levels of the mental kingdom. When we get to that level, we're actually sharing in collective consciousness. That's the big jump we make in consciousness to get there. Animals, to get to the human kingdom, made a huge jump in consciousness. They developed self-consciousness. Our pets don't really have an idea of self-consciousness. They're very conscious and active and objectively aware. As soon as they make that jump of, oh, I am you know, the dog that he's talking. This is me. They're not dogs anymore. You know, they're done. They're ready to become humans. They've made a huge jump in consciousness, and that's what distinguishes the kingdoms of nature. So the jump ahead of us is the jump from our long, lonely trip to the human kingdom of apparently separate consciousness where we have to struggle to understand each other, to where we join the collective consciousness of the next kingdom. The kingdom is nicknamed the kingdom of heaven. It's pretty wonderful. I mean, that's the biblical descriptions are not all that useful, but it is described as, as I was mentioning, where you know everything immediately. When you share a consciousness, collective consciousness, there isn't any loneliness. There's unity, there's understanding, there's cooperation, there's it's something hard for us to imagine because we're just not there yet. If we could really grasp that, we'd be done being human, just like the dog would be done being a dog, when it can be self-conscious. So consider what collective consciousness implies. If you were part of collective consciousness, would you welcome anybody into collective consciousness that was selfish or hate-filled? No. Collective consciousness needs people who understand love and practice it and understand giving and work to serve everybody else and care about everybody else. Those are the people who are welcome into the collective consciousness. Not people who are still, cursing at the guys in traffic that cut them off. They're not going to make the kingdom of heaven until you can overcome every single thing that bothers you about other people. To exclude anyone is to exclude yourself from that collective consciousness. Once he makes that point emphatically. So we have a lot of work to do, obviously. Before we can say we're ready for collective consciousness, we've purified all the separative stuff about humanity out of our systems. So back to the cosmic aspects of love again. In the Bailey books, Lawrence books in particular, they talk about how everything, matter equals energy. Einstein is very clear about this. He managed to even prove it. That's kind of amazing. But Esoterics has been saying all along that matter is energy, energy is matter. It's just different sort of phases of the same thing. Well, if we look at how energy is organized in the universe, it's in octaves. Musical notes are in octaves. The spectrum of colors is an octave. And actually, octave is the wrong name for these things because it says 8. It's really 7 unique notes in an octave, and then the first one repeats at double the frequency. That's the first note over again, so it's not 8 unique notes. It's 7 unique notes that repeat each double the frequency. All energy is organized in these mathematical relationships, frequencies. And it turns out that there are qualities to each of these notes. As you can imagine, each color is very different from the other. Each note in an octave is too. Lawrence calls these departments. He says that when you look at any organization in the higher kingdoms of the human, they're organized along these lines of departments. First department is power note, the key note of a scale. When you hit that note, that sets the scale that you're hearing. You know what key you're in. That's the note of will, of purpose. It shows up in society and our institutions as politics and military, destructive energy a lot of the times, and less of our humanity. Now, the second department, you're not working with one, you're working with two. And as soon as you have two things, you're talking about a relationship. And that's where love comes in. The second department, the second ray, it says in the Vedic books, that's about love. It's called the energy of love, wisdom. Love by itself, it needs some experience to actually express correctly. Wisdom is associated with love there. And that second department is a factor in all of us, actually, because this solar system has its incarnations. It is a second department solar system that we're in. Solar systems themselves are born, die, recreated. This whole solar system is primarily of that departmental energy. All the other notes that we think of, the notes of intelligence, of harmony through conflict, of science, of devotion, these are the notes in the scale. They're all subnotes of the great second ray or second department note of love and wisdom. So that's why they make the statement that it's the most powerful force in the solar system, more powerful than any destructive force or military force or anything like that. Love is it can overcome. this second department plays into our bodies. Each of our bodies is on a particular one of these notes in the scale. It plays into countries. Each country has a soul keynote and a personality keynote. If you look at the relationships between countries, it can start to become clear. It gives in this, Bailey particularly gives this, and Lawrence repeats it. The notes of some countries are given. In particular, the United States and Great Britain both share the same soul note of the second ray. Love, wisdom is the ruling energy on the soul level in those two countries. Different personality rays, obviously, we're very different in personality. But I don't know if any of you have heard the Who sing their song, the British rock band, the Who sing their song, Love, Reign Over Me. They're singing about the soul of England, the soul of Britain when they're singing that. Love is an extremely powerful force in the highest levels of consciousness in that country, as it is here. To talk about love is to talk about a fairly recent topic. It wasn't in a lot of the ancient scriptures so much. It was really when Christ came, he anchored an energy of love that wasn't present before. It's an energy that's, as they describe here, flows through the constellation of Gemini. It's expressed as love, forgiveness, brotherhood. That was the key aspect of his mission here, was to anchor brotherhood in humanity. And of course the church has got a hold of it and messed it all up almost immediately. But there are still people who manage to get that message out of Christianity and still do. That's real Christianity. And Christ is actively loving us all this very instant. It's part of his objective in this world to keep that happening. He's the head of the heart center of the planet. The heart center is an organization of beings that are beyond the human in this next kingdom beyond human. And if you're not familiar with these ideas, I know it's a big jump, right? But this beyond the human, the beings that stay on to help us have taken the path of compassion and form the planetary hierarchy, it's called, and they represent the heart center of the planet. And they're continually working on how can we help humanity, how can we ease the suffering of humanity, what can we do to help people, not brutalize their children and raise people that grow up to be loving people. And it's a challenge because we keep making big mistakes. Buddha came to teach common sense and the right way to think and the right way to live. Christ came after that to anchor love in particular, love and brotherhood. Esoterics talks about people being a repellent or attractive tendency. That's another factor in all this about love. We're talking about the cosmic aspects of love. Repellent, attractive, is a kind of, the earth apparently is a place where particularly repellent egos are sent to. I'm sorry to say, I hope you're not offended. But it's a place where we come to work our things out as egos that really didn't get the message of attractiveness in some other system. And we're here because having a physical body is really an ideal way to suffer and learn compassion for other people. So as soon as we really learn that compassion, maybe we can be done with this particular world's problems.
So is there a color related to the second ray, specific color?
No, it seems to be different in the different worlds, so I can't give you a particular answer. As I read through the books, the colors that we're associated with things shift in different ways. But, as an artist, that would be interesting information.
It seems like there would be some corollary.
I think that there is, but you'll have to look it up. There's an interesting little anecdote about Christ that he was recruiting people in relatively modern times to work with him on a project. And it's hard to imagine even anything that relates to human activity for somebody, some being as advanced as Christ, has gone further than any human has gone, and more quickly too. He kind of holds the record for that. But when they recruited these people to work with him, they didn't actually look for people who were particularly loving. They looked for people who were really capable and organized and good leaders and could make things happen in the world, because they knew that as soon as they put them together with Christ, the power of his love would open their hearts wide open. There was no question these people would become loving people if they had any latent possibility of it, because as soon as love of his nature, the power that he has, as soon as that was expressed, then they would fall right in line with love. You know, Sai Baba died last week, we could go day on Easter.
He did?
And he was an exponent of love too. He obviously came to do a lot of work with that. The people that went to visit him in India said that when they were in his presence, they immediately felt like they'd met up with their best friend, who had always been their best friend. And that he knew them and recognized them, and they recognized him. This is a really common experience among all the people that went to see him. And, you know, my grandfather used to talk about Sai Baba. He said, well, okay, I'll tell you. When he first saw a picture of Sai Baba, he said, the only miracle about that guy is he doesn't have fleas in his hair. Because he was a pretty hard-nosed guy, my grandfather. He taught spirituality, but every time he saw a guru come from India, a lot of them were frauds, and he was really tired of that. So his initial response to the guys that came over was, these guys are just phonies. But then he said, okay, everybody keeps talking about Sai Baba. I'll see if he's really got something special. So he was working on healing somebody. He said, he just asked for Sai Baba's help. Next thing he knew, there was Sai Baba in an emotional body and a mental body, each separately working, helping him with this healing project he was doing. So from then on, he felt very connected to Sai Baba and referred all of his students to him.
Excuse me. That raises a question. Do you believe it's possible to contact people like Sai Baba on the other side?
Absolutely. Sai Baba is a special case, too. He was an avatar. This is my grandfather, again, his opinion, but he was truly an avatar that came to anchor particular energies. The limitations of physical form were never really limitations for him. He took them to help him communicate with everybody, but he was probably just as available to contact now as he was then.
St. Teresa, the little flower, was dying, and she said, a nun asked her, how do you want to spend your heaven? And she said, I want to spend my heaven doing good on earth.
Yes, Mother Teresa, that was really it. Was St. Teresa or Mother Teresa?
Teresa, the little flower.
Anyway, I'm going to mention Mother Teresa later on. And one more cosmic question about love here. Is love eternal? Is it really just transient? Is it something we have to cling at and it runs away and we can never really keep it? Well, what's eternal in this room? It's not the walls, and it's not our bodies. It's us. The life, the points of consciousness that we are inhabiting these bodies, we are immortal, eternal, indestructible. We'll be going at our evolutionary process for billions of years, but we're the eternal thing in this room. And our relationships are therefore eternal too. And what we have established in love is eternal. If you're planting the seeds of love, you will be harvesting them, and that goes on forever.
Can I ask a question? You keep talking about love, but you haven't really defined love. Is there a definition?
It's, to talk about it at the cosmic level, love is the relationship with all dualities in the cosmos. You know, spirit, matter, that's the greatest duality of all. And polarity exists in every world, in every level, whether sex does or not.
So it's the connectedness of all of us.
It's what brings us back into unity. It's recognition of unity.
Okay.
If I'm feeling love for somebody, I'm sensing that my unity with that person.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm glad you asked because I meant to say that. And when all the higher worlds are all about love, and they're trying to teach humanity love, if we're making an effort to love, the entire universe is behind our effort. It's one of the most productive things you can do. You've got the entire universe backing your effort. You're aligned with the plans for humanity when you're trying to love. You're aligned with the plans for the cosmos. So, go ahead and try it. Try it. And you'll have some challenges if you do, because next topic, love and humanity. Hatred is a very powerful force in this world. As much as we would like to focus on love, we have to deal with people who actively hate, who really would like to hurt others, who are deep down afraid on such a level that they cannot recognize their unity with other people, and that they would rather hurt somebody than understand them. Those people they're afraid. I mean, that's where the hatred comes from. A deep enough level, they're afraid of losing themselves, of losing something they have, of losing something that they don't have. You know, people are afraid of losing what they never did have. They don't have other people. People think they possess other people. They don't. But there are also powerful people who encourage the fear and the hatred in this world. And yet another obstacle to love, because their power over humanity is based on fear. That's how they control everybody. They keep everybody afraid. If they can make people afraid of their neighbor or of another country or of the religion or of God or of themselves, as long as they can keep people afraid like that, they can control them, they maintain their power. As long as they can maintain their power, these are people who aren't on the side of love. They don't care about love. They see it as weakness. Unfortunately, people have taken that very great distance and become very powerful mental beings who simply want power and control. However, the door is closed to them, to the next kingdom. They cannot leave the human kingdom. They cannot make it to the kingdom of collective consciousness. They're not welcome at all there. They will never achieve. They've reached a limit, and they have a huge amount of backtracking to do before they will ever get a chance to make it beyond the human kingdom. And they actually accelerate our progress because they give us resistance to our efforts, and we struggle all the harder to accomplish love and our goals. It's sad but true. And about 10 years ago, I saw George Harrison on TV. And I think he had the answer to this question about hatred and all the bad, powerful people and things like that. He was being interviewed, and he said, you know, back in the 60s, we believed that love could fix everything. He paused for a second and said, I still do. And he's a beautiful soul. And the Beatles anchored a lot of love, brought love through in all kinds of ways. And he was right. It's love that can fix the fear, that penetrates the core of fear and separation. It's love that makes the person finally realize that, wait a second, I'm not so separate. I don't have to fight my battle against everybody. And even talking about bringing love through, this information I have is here because of love. The people that gave us this information, the masters, the so-called theosophy, the adepts, basically the ones who graduate in the human kingdom and are part of the collective consciousness and reach back to help us, they're doing it out of love. They chose the path of compassion and they want to help us. That's why they gave us this information. They take a risk in sharing it because we abuse it, and they have responsibility for that if we do. But they love humanity. These, in particular, the masters that started the Theosophical Society are the greatest lovers of humanity, because the rest of the hierarchy actually was thinking we should wait until humanity gets a little further along. But these two loved humanity enough to say, let's take the risk, we'll take the responsibility. You know, it's not so hard to return that love either. If you think about what they did and the risk they took, think about, think about our elder brothers and send them some love. Another cosmic aspect of things is that we're not the only kingdom in evolution on the planet. At least we're talking mineral, vegetable, animal. There is a parallel kingdom that we also abused our relationship with in Atlantean times, the David kingdom. They're the kingdom of angels, and they have all the way from little fairies and sprites all the way up to great archangels. They are not visible to us, but will be soon, because humanity is opening up its etheric consciousness, and the lowest, densest forms that the Devas inhabit are etheric, which is the upper level of the physical plane, subtler than solid, liquid, gaseous. Above that are subtler levels still of physical material, which make up our energy bodies. The Devas actually have etheric bodies, or subtler than that. We'll be able to see them again, we'll get reacquainted, and there's a whole host of them. They build the forms that we think of things, and they build it. They build our very bodies and the plants and everything. They work with the matter aspect. We work with the consciousness aspect. And you get higher worlds. Those were higher worlds with the emotion aspect. Anyway, humanity is a masculine kingdom relative to this feminine kingdom of the devas. Something to think about. We'll get more into what male and female are about later. To quote Lawrence, even physical life will finally become a paradise once mankind has acquired common sense, uprightness, the sense of unity, and the insight that what is not love is hatred. That's something to ask ourselves about all the emotions we express. Is this really an expression of love, or is it an expression of hatred, of separateness? All right, it's great to love, but there are people who love humanity who are right among us as well, not just the masters, and who love humanity to the degree that they take love where it's needed. And it's easy to love our friends and our family, but there's a teacher that I had here in Seattle, Leonard Shaw, who I met through a Center for Spiritual Living, who was giving a talk on love and forgiveness. And it was really great. I talked to him and went to more things he was teaching. I think he's a saint. I don't know what else to call him. This is the most beautiful guy I've met in all of Seattle. His soul is so oriented towards helping people with love and forgiveness. And what he does, well, okay, I think he might have saved my life when I was going through my divorce. One thing he taught me was to, instead of my mind racing, thinking about, how could you have her lawyers do this, and it's not right, and whatever it is I was going through my mind. He said, just think of her, and think, I love you, I forgive you, I bless you, I release you. And just keep repeating. It's so much better than thinking through the things that are driving you crazy about somebody. To just keep saying that as a mantra over and over again. I think it saved my life. I don't know if I could have taken the more mental torment of rehashing things, but when I thought that way, I could see her, and all the energy I put into saying that was part of actually working with my ex in a productive way. So that was a great technique he taught me. He does something else that really impressed me, and it is something in the name of love, for sure. For 20 years, he went to Monroe Prison and other prisons around here 3 or 4 times a year. He would spend 12 hours on a Saturday there, 12 hours on a Sunday. I went with him 5 or 6 times doing this for those weekends. When you go to Monroe Prison, those are the guys they're never getting out of that place. They've killed somebody to be there. They've done all kinds of horrible things. You go through one locked door after another at security checkpoint, and they double check your ID and all these things, and finally you end up in a big room with 60 of these guys sitting in a big circle. And Leonard would first go around and everybody say their name, and then he'd go back and tell everybody their names. That started things off very well. That kind of made everybody there realize that they were important to what was about to happen. And then he would say, is there anybody that would like to work on their crime? And somebody would say yes. And he put 2 chairs in the middle of this circle of people. And the guy would sit in one chair and say, okay, first describe your crime. And one example of this one fellow, I remember, he had been robbing a bank. He had a gun in his hand. People weren't acting fast enough for him. They weren't finding the money for him. He jumped up on the counter to try to get them to move, and the gun went off in his hand, accidentally, and shot the bank teller, young woman dead, behind the counter. And you can bet that he was put away for life for that. He shot somebody, he killed somebody in a hole, in a bank robbery. And he hated himself. He took society's word for it that he was worthless. He couldn't look in the mirror. This is just a young guy, but he hung his head. He just talked about his crime. Wow. It was horrible to see what it had done to him. And so Leonard had him sit in one of the chairs, and he said, okay. In the other chair is the person who killed. I want you to talk to that person. And every sentence starts with, now that I've killed you, I. So he would say, Now that I've killed you, I hate myself. Now that I've killed you, I have to live. I'm in prison for the rest of my life. Now that I've killed you, you'll never have any kids. It's very sad. And he felt every bit of it. This guy was really suffering as he went through it. Then he switched chairs. And he had to start every sentence with, now that you've killed me. He had to play the victim. And say, now that you've killed me, I will never get to live. I'll never get to have any children. Now that you've killed me, I hate you. Now that you've killed me, it's all over for me. I didn't get to live. And this was so tough to watch, I'll tell you. But he had the sympathy of all these people. They knew where he was coming from. They could be sympathetic. And Leonard could be. He didn't judge anybody for anything. And as a result of this process, this really painful process, this person just basically opened up their soul. And then something happened that I don't think I can describe. You'd have to be there. But something happened that's hard to understand. But finally, the guy ended up sitting in the seat as himself. No, he ended up sitting in the seat as the victim, talking to himself, and he said, now that you killed me, I forgive you. When he could do that, everything changed. Everything changed for him, and I know a lot of people won't think that's right, that he should be able to say that. He doesn't have the right to say that for the victim. But somehow, the magic of that caused this person to change, finished things up for him, made him appreciate every bit of the suffering that he'd caused. And boy, he had suffered through it himself too. And then 4 months later, I saw that guy again. We came back for another weekend. And he was alive. He was encouraging all the other guys, you've got to work on your crime, come on, you know. He was cheerful even. I mean, here he was in prison, but he woke him back up as a human being. And if there's ever an argument against the death penalty, I mean, that story should be part of it, because this guy had a chance. He was able to do something about himself and heal. And he offered the help of a saint like Leonard Shaw. Incredible thing. And Leonard was 20 years, 3 times a year, he'd work with these guys on this. Incredible thing.
How old is Mr. Shaw?
I think he might be about 70 now. He actually doesn't live too far from here, and he's still doing this sort of work and these techniques, and he's got some kind of intensive in June, where he actually does some of these techniques now with people that come to him in groups that aren't part of the prison population. Up until 10 months ago, he was doing the prison stuff. There was some disagreement with the counselors there, and they didn't want him to come back. So. But on the handout, there's a website you can go to if you want to learn about him. He does counseling, individual counseling, things like that. I would take the counseling. It's very helpful.
So it sounds like sometimes people are stuck, or they can't move on, they can't forgive themselves or something. Like if we're here to learn lessons and get better at this stuff, but it seems like that's what he's doing.
Where's love going to go if you can't forgive yourself, right? That really blocks love. And if you can't forgive somebody else the same thing, that is an obstacle to love. And people get very stuck with that. All right, let's talk about love and the individual. We read rosy pictures in literature about love and how great it is to fall in love and romance and things like that. Like Pride and Prejudice, for example, where she falls in love with, well, she doesn't like this guy because he's not charming, you know. And then she learns a lesson later that despite him not being charming, he's actually a really good person because of the things he does. Meanwhile, her sister falls with a charming guy who is a rogue, and the big mess happens because of that. So there's some good things from literature, but then the same book, you know, you finally fall in love with the right guy, and surprise, he is fantastically wealthy. You know, it's an enormous chateau there, or whatever it is, and England. So we build all these fantasies into our idea about love too. You know, we learn a few things, but we don't all have Mr. Darcy's out there waiting for us to whisk us away to their castle.
Except for Kate.
Except for you.
Hey, you just became queen of me.
Well, okay,
I mean,
okay.
princess.
We can all enjoy that vicariously.
Yeah.
And that's why the royal wedding was such a big deal. Both the US and Britain had second-rate souls. It's all about love and the soul level.
Yeah.
So, so literature, we build lots of ideas about love, and it doesn't necessarily help us. We have to, and I'm going to talk later about the actual work you can do related to the ideas that you have. When we get into relationships, that's really, in the context of relationships, we have to work on it. So I'll come back to that, and I'll get back to just a couple more things about love and individual. We have chakras, okay, energy centers in our body, energy from higher levels comes down through those points in our body. The solar plexus is all about emotional energy. Ultimately, that energy is transformed and lifted to the heart center. And that is basically saying that all emotions become love. It's part of our human evolution to lift all our emotions into just expressions of love. I don't know if you've ever tried to think in your heart. That's a great exercise. If you're struggling with somebody in your workplace or whatever, you know, minds try to know minds, but hearts know hearts better than minds know minds. If you can connect with somebody on a heart level, they're more likely to work things out with them. And if they're having a problem with you, you're having a problem with them, more love is needed. Love from you, love for you. You've got to bring in the love to get through that. And asking your heart is a good exercise. You can also think of the person like a screaming 2-year-old, because that's probably where their problems originated, somewhere around there. And, you know, whatever adult role of problems they're causing for you, it's really just babyhood somewhere. That's, if you really can't find love in your heart for somebody, think of someone else you love. Get love going in yourself. Think about them, get the love moving, and then maybe you can redirect it towards the other person. Then just try everything, because, like I said, you've got the universe behind you, you've got your soul behind you, you've got a good chance of succeeding. You've got to recognize that everybody hurts, and everybody has a heart that's been hurt. There's some saying, no one knows the suffering in another man's heart, you know, that we all have it. It's compassion and respect for each other's pain is a good guide to you know, reviving love. There's a quote, to understand all is to forgive all. Just like these guys in prison, you know, all the stories I heard there in the prison of the childhoods of these people, the horrible things that were done to them as children. It's no wonder they ended up in prison. They didn't have any connection with a loving parent. They were taught horrible things. You know, even barbarians, because we've got humans at barbarian level who haven't really developed higher emotions like admiration or compassion or affection. We're working with those people all the time too. They need love, even just an example of love, so they can admire somebody who loves and develop the quality of themselves. It's through admiration that we acquire new qualities. We can find somebody that has a quality that we admire. And another topic on love and the individual, love is a factor in enlightenment, because the definition of enlightenment is the end of emotional and mental suffering, that we can face physical suffering with equanimity, and we don't feel persecuted by others, we don't blame others, we aren't victims of ourselves even. And for all that to happen, we have to trust life, we have to trust ourselves, and that is an aspect of love. If we understand that the plans for us are all set in motion from worlds and beings beyond what we can even know about, our own souls are working together in perfect conscious cooperation with each other to work out the best things for us, it's all done in love. And if we can work with that and recognize and trust that it's for love, instead of resenting and doubting God and doubting everything about that's good because we have to suffer. The Lord says 90% of our suffering is because of our bad reaction, but 10% that we have to go through. So let's not blame anybody, let's not resent, just we have to be stoic in some things. And we're not as alone as we might think. Lawrence talks about us incarnating in clans. We reincarnate with the same sets of souls in all relationships, parent, child, brother, sister, business partner, enemy, friend, whatever, we have every conceivable relationship with the same sets of souls. And then we reach the causal level, eventually, the higher level of the mental plane, and where we can actually start to verify some of these esoteric things for ourselves, hopefully ahead of us relatively soon. Then we can finally identify the members of our group and recognize the people we've known so well in so many ways for so long. But now, there are also other ways to really get to know somebody, and if you happen to be of the same departmental energies, right? The same, you've got physical, emotional, mental, the personality as a whole of those bottom three things has its own note that is sounded. If you're the same note as somebody else of personality and on the same soul note, you're going to be able to understand each other. And that actually makes for a really good marriage, for instance. If you both have the same frequencies that you relate on, there's a possibility of really understanding each other and minimizing conflict.
Is that how people develop into clans, because they are on the same note?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure of the history. It may very well be that people individualized as humans together and formed a clan right at that time.
Because we all meet people that we're instantly attracted to, that we
Right.
instantly like, and I've always been taught that that's part of our clan.
It could be the clan.
Recognizing them.
Or it could just be that you've got the same exact vibrational notes in your
Yeah.
bodies. That can also cause the same sort of sense of, I completely understand this person.
So it's not always the same clan, it could be the note.
Right. Right. We won't be able to verify for sure until we get that causal sensitivity to higher mental. So, in all these relationships, impersonal love is emphasized in esoterics. Loving without all the sticky attachments of personality, the requirements of each other. We build patterns about love. We make, from our less intelligent lifetimes in the past, we're still conditioned by patterns of thought, like, if you love me, you will fulfill my ridiculous fantasies about you and make me completely happy all the time. You'll change for me. You'll return my love. That's not even something to assume, really. You'll love no one else. Just me. The personality messes love up in so many ways. If you want to love in a way that you're not going to get hurt, love what is eternal in other people. The soul is there. Find it and love that. And draw it out of people by loving it. That's how if you want to change somebody, if you're really going to try, the best thing you can do is try to love out the good things. Draw out best qualities, focus on them. If you focus on the bad qualities, you'll be drawing them out. So focus on the good ones, strengthen them, and draw them out. In fact, if in some past lifetime we were a horrible parent, we all were, of course, we're going to run to the person whose opportunities we limited in that lifetime. We've got to love out the qualities that we ourselves restricted in them and caused not to grow before. If we're going to right the balance, the karmic balance with every individual that we've ever harmed, we're going to need to be able to love out the good qualities that we blocked. Well, I guess I referred to parental love in a couple of contexts already. The fastest way to improve this world is to improve the quality of parents. Because there are, most of the souls that aren't in incarnation in the human kingdom, are more advanced than the ones that are. So if with better parenting, we draw in higher quality souls and we change the world more quickly that way than any other, by bringing in better people. Okay, relationships. Of course I've thought about all this myself, and some of this is my own opinion, but I think of falling in love as you feel some love for somebody, and you look in their eyes, and there's love that comes back to you. And that just it causes your love to grow. And then if you look again, and there's more love there, it just is like it reaches a crescendo. It goes back and forth, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger until it's more than you can imagine. That, to me, is kind of a definition of falling in love. But then if you put your love out there and it's met with rejection, or even worse, betrayal, well, you end up with a broken heart, and you've learned some things about how isolated we all really are. We get reminded of it, and it's one of the saddest things. But, there's personality in that too. Expecting that that person's gonna be the one to return the love. It's just asking for it.
You said a key thing there, expectations.
Right, your expectations are personality
Yes.
based. The soul just radiates love.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you put a value on it like it has to be.
Why do you become disappointed is you put that expectation there, that expectation, that's what you can love without expectations. That's real
Unconditional.
love.
I have that with my dog.
Yeah. I do too with my dog. Not so much with my husband, but with my dog.
So it's egotism, it's my
Ego-
egoism.
Another place, egoism blocks love. But falling in love, there's certainly a big hormonal component to it too. It's an
Okay.
emotional component. You get swept away. People can fall in love over nothing more than physical attraction. And boy, is that asking for trouble. But that can make for strong attraction in a very short relationship. Because your hormones are going to get kicked off too. But let's not make a mistake of thinking that it's our bodies that are making everything happen. That's a classic mistake that psychology still makes to this day, thinking consciousness is a result of our bodies, of a firing electron and neurons. Really, our bodies wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the consciousness that needed them. We're the consciousness that created the body, the experiences. If we don't need to be here anymore, we won't be. We'll still exist on some other level. The body is a result of consciousness, not the other way around. And the same goes for love. Love is not just a hormonal thing. We get into a big debate with that, I'm sure, with some psychologists. Another thing with broken hearts, there are hearts out there that are just made of stone. And I don't know if you've ever been tempted to break one of those hearts, but it's tempting, isn't it? If you've got somebody that you just wish they would fall in love with you so you could break their heart. Well, that's of course personality too. But if somebody can get their heart broken, they have a heart. And it's actually the very beginning of softening up a stone hard heart to have fallen in love and ended up with a broken heart, because at least it's broken now and it can start to get softened up. It's not the solid piece of rock it was. Lawrence says true love is a mental plane thing, by the way. I know sometimes these topics are just kind of one little topic after the other, not associated, but I'm just trying to get it all out there. On the mental planes, we can actually completely connect and understand with each other. The emotional is full of illusion. Physical, obviously, we can connect there, but that's not true love. It's on the mental plane, and maybe that was, it says something for the love affairs of the 1700s and 1800s. They wrote all these letters to each other. They were really creating a mental relationship to each other. They've got stronger and stronger through just having that only. They didn't have anything else to distract them, so they had a mental relationship. And maybe the internet is filling in, is stepping in again to help people have mental relationships more too. People get to know each other with emails, and you can learn a lot about people. Back to love in relationships. In my last talk, I criticized the Mormons for the idea that we're not going to get to heaven unless we accept their beliefs. Right? Well, I still think that's ridiculous. But I want to say something good about the Mormons. When it comes to relationships, they take them seriously. If you're growing up in the Mormon church in Utah, you go to singles church. They want you to date many different people. They don't expect you to just get married right away. They set up all these opportunities for you to find the right person for you and really find out if it's the right person. They put family and marriage ahead of career. And I think they're really on the right track. I mean, think how happy everybody would be if they really had found the right partner and made the effort. And, of course, we're all going to make mistakes, but you've got all of your culture and society around you supporting your effort to meet people and find the right one, giving you opportunities. So I hint them on that. And there may be a larger reason for this. My grandfather used to say that the U.S. has chakras, like the body does, and it has a sacral plexus. I'm about to talk about that when we get to sexuality, is the next section. The sacral plexus is the nerve center in our body, or chakra in our body, where desire and sexual energy are focused. Well, countries have chakras too. He said the sacral plexus in the United States was in the process of moving from St. Louis to Salt Lake City. So it could very well be that people are incarnating in Salt Lake City, in the Mormon Church, to learn something very particular and useful about love and sexuality. I grew up in Salt Lake City. I can verify some of that. I think it's true. People learn a lot there about sexuality, despite their problems with patriarchy and things like that.
Maybe unity too, because a friend of mine said there's actually a reality TV show about Mormon families. And it's a family of like 4 wives and one husband, and they have tons of kids, and they're actually all thriving and very happy. And the women are all friends, and the kids all play together, and it sort of breaks a lot of the stereotypes.
I want reality, and it's really not true. There's a lot of jealousy in the wives.
Is there?
Yeah, there's a lot of competition. That's kind of like human nature.
Well, that would be
Yeah.
working it out, right? They'd be
I
working.
don't think it's always worked out.
And in Esoteric books it says that polygamy, promiscuity, even all kinds of relationships like that were at one time or other in human history sanctioned and probably the appropriate thing for humanity at that time. It's probably not all that good for us now, promiscuity or polygamy, but sometimes it depends on the needs of humanity at the time too. And the next section is on sexuality. I'll get into that there. But I want to mention a couple more things about community. And relationships are part of community, really. So often it's 2 people that get together and I think it's really just all about them, but it affects everybody around them. And I've been in many meditation groups over the years, and some of which I've started, and I've had 2 of them suffer a great deal over relationship issues within the group. The first group I was in years ago was just powerful and beautiful and incredible, and great meditations. But then one person in the group slept with somebody else in the group while being married to a different person in the group. And the group pretty much exploded. That was the end of it. And then, more recently, I was part of a group where 2 people in the group, unknown to anybody else in the group actually, got together and just their relationship just went along really quickly and then fell apart just as quickly, and then neither of them wanted to come to the group anymore because they didn't want to see each other. So people think about relationships in terms of context on proofs and really group energy is so powerful. It's so much potential in it. And we're going into the Aquarian age, leaving the Piscean age. Piscean age is about individualism and devotion, looking up and being devoted to God. Aquarian energy is group-oriented, and it is impersonal. And impersonal love, practiced in a group, can be really satisfying love. It doesn't have all the sticky stuff of personality. It can be something where you're so happy to see these people, and then you're so happy to just go the next. You don't have all the, I need this from you, and you have to take care of me, or anything like that. It's just, we see each other once a week, we get together, and there's love, and it's great, and we all reinforce each other. That's where groups are going, in my opinion. But, okay, well, next topic, love and sexuality. It turns out there's a lot said about sexuality in the esoteric books, a surprising amount. And it's so easy to search these days. If you've got the CD, you can open it up in Acrobat and just type in sex or homosexuality, and it searches all the books at once. And it gives you all these amazing quotes. So I encourage you to try some of those things. The topics are interesting. There's a big mystery about sexuality. It goes way beyond anything we're going to solve in this kingdom or in this room. The duality, the cosmos, etc. It's huge. That's what sexuality is a reflection of. And male, female are reflections of that polarity. It turns out that there's a being for whom this whole planet is his body. The Lord of the world, this is one name for Sanat Kumara, is the most advanced monad, point of consciousness, most advanced being. He himself is approaching another being in relationship with polarity. He's trying to clean up this world to support that relationship. I just read that the other day in the Bailey books, and it surprised me.
How do you spell his name?
Sanat, S-A-N-A-T, Kumar. You can definitely look him up in all this material. From Dwal Pool, who is behind the Alice Bailey books, he writes that at the fourth initiation, very, very specific point in evolution of consciousness, you're getting almost under the human kingdom there. The key to the mystery of sex, or the pairs of opposites, is thrust into his hand, and he can then unlock the hidden forces of the will aspect. So there's just something to ponder on. How does sexuality, and the key to it, release the forces of the will aspect?
Did you say that again?
It says, at the fourth initiation, the key to the mystery of sex, or the pairs of opposites, is thrust into his hand, and he can then unlock the hidden forces of the will aspect. Maybe not until we completely understand sex for ourselves can we really free our will. Otherwise, we might use it wrongly when it relates to sex. Yes, now, we've made our way through all the kingdoms. This is something I talked about in earlier talks. We've made our way through the mineral kingdom, vegetable, animal, human. We had to earn and work for and achieve every ability we have. Every having fingers, being able to digest food, every single thing about us is a result of our efforts. We weren't given any of it for free. And sexuality is the result of our efforts too, actually. We had to develop our ability to be sexual. It was in Lemurian times, which is, Atlantis was before us, Atlantean times before that was Lemurian times. At that time, sexuality became part of human experience. It really wasn't before. And it became part of drawing people into physical form to really be anchored in the physical plane. And it actually was encouraged to a great degree because it caused people to take their physical vehicles on fully. And it also, it was encouraged to the degree that it was perhaps too successful, because what happened was the advanced humanity of that time could not reach sexual satisfaction to the degree they wanted. They had insatiable appetites, and they took it to extremes and explored all kinds of not really healthy sexuality. They explored homosexuality, they explored all kinds of different things. And since they were the advanced individuals of that time, they had a lot of imitators and followers too, that did the things that they did.
So you're saying sexuality was the way that souls could incarnate then?
It became the way. It wasn't always the way. Sexuality is something kind of is going to come and go in humanity. At the end of humanity's evolution.
So sex was
to
only about
become one.
reproduction before then? Or wasn't?
In animal and vegetable forms it was, but human consciousness hadn't really merged with animal form. And I'm not sure all the details about this. It's something you might want to look up yourself, but Lemurian times is where it all starts. And also what happened in Lemurian times was the introduction of venereal disease, because it was the balancing factor when people went too far with sexuality. And it's venereal disease, it's only now that we're finally going to start wiping it out through two things, through science curing it and not burying people who have it. That the soil of the earth is contaminated from burying people's bodies that have venereal diseases and other diseases. And we've got to get over that. Eventually, the Lord just says it will eventually be illegal to bury bodies. They'll need to be burned. So it'll be a while until to purify the soil enough to get rid of the germs of that and those and other diseases.
Stanton, did I hear you say that that sexuality, that human beings became anchored on the physical plane because of their sexual contact that actually
That's my
woke
understanding.
them up to their
It has something to
physicality?
do with anchoring people physically, that they weren't really going to do it. They weren't going to, without some incentive, and that was the incentive, is to actually get down to physicality and have some reason to enjoy it, I guess. But, you know, this is an area where I've read the literature a few times, I still don't understand it, so I invite you all to make your own interpretations. Other people have taught about sexuality, Amy Besant and Charles Lightbeater, and they were persecuted for it. This is 100 years ago, 110 years ago, just to teach about contraception like Annie Besant did, made her such an enemy of the people that they took her kids away. It's a sad chapter in human history that what is now absolutely talked about everywhere and needs to be talked about scientifically was then a reason to be persecuted. And Leadbeater too was taken to court over all kinds of weird accusations and we're lucky we guess that shows that we're progressing, right? It's not that bad now. People can talk about it. We can at least talk about it scientifically. Everybody has a relatively good understanding of what's going on. And stuff isn't happening so much in the dark. And Lawrence says, it's a natural and probably necessary function, except for those who just are impotent or whatever. But the full quote on that is in your handout. And let's not beat ourselves up over sexuality. It's another thing emphasized again and again in this literature. There were times in the Middle Ages in Christian thinking when it was taught that sexuality was bad, and that indulging in any aspect of sexuality was sinful, and that sin, of course, cut you off from heaven forever. You're sentenced to hell eternally for your sins. So people developed some really awful approaches to sexuality, such as just denying it. And that doesn't work either. The energy is a natural thing. It's going to come through your sacral plexus, and if you don't have a place for it to go, it's going to come out some other way. And look at these poor Catholic priests out there, They just simply are not able to deal with the sexual energy coming through, and it came out some way, and it's undermining their whole church. And here's another myth about sexuality. The more advanced people don't suffer from or deal with it or have sex, the more further along you get, the more energy is flowing through all your chakras, top to bottom, So everybody, the more advanced souls have to deal with it too. Although, what Lawrence says and Bailey says is that the energy of the sacral plexus, just like emotional energy is ultimately lifted to the heart and becomes an expression of love, sacral plexus energy is lifted to the throat. It's creative energy. And the really, truly creative artists out there can lift all of their sexual energy and convert it into the creative energy through the throat chakra. It's relatively rare, but we will all master that at some point. And then hopefully be a little less, not riding the bucking bronco all the time with sexuality. It's, Bernsey has some choice words for sexual morality. He says, sexual morality is the condemnation of the erotic people by the unerotic. So-called sexual morality has been dictated by the sexless, erotically indifferent or impotent, in whom both the physiological and emotional conditions were absent. They have made a virtue of necessity. What he means by that is, since they can't join the party, they're going to condemn everybody else who's at the party. And that still goes on. Sexuality tied to Christian moral judgment. Oh, what a nightmare that's been.
When did we equate sexuality with love? It seems like
Well,
two separate things.
it's part of the big mystery. Love is about the big duality, and so is sexuality. Sexuality, this is kind of personal, I'll try to share it anyway. I'll have dreams where I'm attracted to a woman in a dream, and I'm very attracted to her. She's beautiful, I just want to be with her. But it's not sexual, it's just all about appreciation for the attraction, the love, the good energy. It's only as I'm just about to wake up that it becomes sexual, and it's only because I've come back in contact with my physical body. The physical body is all about sexuality. We have them, so we better deal with it. I mean, if we didn't have physical bodies, I kind of hope that when we get to the, when I'm done with this physical body, I'll be done with sexuality, so next time I have to come back and deal with it. Okay, we've been male and female, again and again and again. To get as far as to make a rough estimate where we're all at in this room, we've all had 100,000 incarnations. It may be 100,000+. It takes maybe 150,000 on average to make a human kingdom. And you alternate often, not always alternating, but it's possible to have had 10 incarnations as a woman, and then the next incarnation as a man. You're not going to be the most masculine man. And a lot of the habits of being a woman for so many times are still going to persist. This figures into homosexuality. I figure for myself that I was a female last incarnation. I happen to be aware of that. And one really strong memory that comes back to me from that incarnation was that I was convinced the end of that incarnation, all English men were animals in fine clothing.
But you love them anyway.
Well, I don't think I did. But the thing is, what the kind of, if you hate Muslims, right, you're going to be a Muslim next incarnation, right? If you love women, you know, what you love and hate, both of those determine what you're going to incarnate as, because you need to understand them better. You want to understand them better. The love and hate both involve understanding them better. And I think for myself, I probably alternate, because as a man, I'm fascinated by women, right? As a woman, I was probably fascinated by men, or I hated them, one or the other, but either way, my attention was on men, so here I am as a man this time. I think it's more commonly the pattern to go back and forth, partly just because there's so much interest in the other sex in one incarnation. Or some, you know, it's easy also to imagine coming into incarnation and being fascinated by what it means to be a man and really working on that. And being so interested in that, the next incarnation, you're a man too, so you can really work on it some more. What Esoterics says about homosexuality is interesting. That it's temporary, that there aren't gay souls, that it's only for a spell of an incarnation, or I don't know, maybe more, but that, and I'm only relaying this, I don't really quite follow how all this can be, but what the Bailey books and Lawrence books say is that it is, for the most part, or a big part, the result of raising the sacral plexus energy, but not all the way to the throat. It hasn't made it yet all the way to the throat. It's only made it as far as the heart. And how that can have anything to do with homosexuality, I don't know. But it's an interesting thing to think about. Also, as I mentioned, in Lemuria, it was just an excess of every kind of sexuality was tried, explored, imitated, and those habits have carried over. For those who individualized in Lemuria, they've carried over into current times. And so they're imitators of their habits. And of course, the factor of, you know, you've had a lot of incarnations as one sex, you're going to still have those tendencies. In your first incarnation as the other sex. Another topic, prostitution. Lawrence says women, it needs to be abolished, that women need to help women out of it. I thought that was an interesting suggestion. I thought maybe it was sexist at first, that you would say that this is not a problem, that it's up to women to help women out of prostitution. But when you think about it, it's probably not going to be the men that help prostitutes out of prostitution. And solidarity of a sex is an important thing. And women looking out for women, he says, is going to be the avenue of ending prostitution, showing them that there are higher options. Now, another aspect of prostitution is the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body. The physical body is the least important of the three. And there are people who prostitute their emotional bodies and their mental bodies, and it's a much worse thing. There are scientists who will come up with whatever scientific results they need to get their funding money from the big oil company. That's mental prostitution, and it does a lot of harm. Here's something I've never seen anywhere else. Polarity in our bodies. Now, masculine is spoken as positive, feminine as negative, receptive really is another aspect of negative. It goes from here to there, from positive to negative. And when you think of the physical, actual dense physical body, it's pretty obvious how the polarity works, just the plumbing kind of indicates that. But what Lawrence says is that the etheric body, it's actually different. The women are positive, this is the energy body of the physical. Women are positive, and men are negative. The etheric energy flows in that direction. The consequences of this, you just have to think about it. I haven't quite figured out what this might all mean to us, but emotionally, men are positive, and women are negative. And this may explain the attraction for women to particularly emotional men, maybe anger or aggressiveness or stuff like that, but it could be explained by that maybe. And that women tend to only believe a man is sincere if he's expressing emotion when he talks. Maybe that's also, I don't know. Women are positive mentally, and men are negative mentally. And this is obvious to me from watching children. If you watch, the little girls are the ones that are deciding what everybody's going to do. They go, okay, now we're going to play this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, and the boys are just, yeehaw, they don't know how to play. And And guys, we know women are smarter, so you might as well do it. So, my grandfather used to say that women ruled in Atlantis, actually, and they messed everything up. But men have ruled now, we've messed up. So now the pendulum is swinging back again. Women will be running the show again relatively soon.
Want to be both of us at some point, men and women equally? or-
Maybe when we're all hermaphroditic, which is supposed to happen also.
Age of Aquarius.
Um, another interesting thing says that DK says in the Berry books is that when we become fully integrated personalities, which is when your physical, emotional, mental are all serving your same personality, desires, and function. You brought them all together. You're not at war with yourself. Really. The powerful people in this world are all integrated personalities. They can get their parts cooperating and get stuff done. They're not constantly arguing with themselves about what to do. Well, as an integrated personality, we actually will be able to control whether we conceive or not. He doesn't specify whether it's women or men, but it's got to be women he's talking about. I can't imagine a man being able to turn off his ability to conceive. But I think there are inklings of that now. There are schools of thought out there that women can take control of their bodies and simply decide whether or not they're going to conceive. But that promise is something coming our way. My grandfather used to say, we don't have to worry about overpopulation because people are steadily becoming less fertile. And that actually is true. The sperm counts have dropped 50% on average around the world, except in Finland. Nobody knows why Finland does not have the problem. But everywhere else. And that he also said that the whole planet, the energy of the entire planet is refining, reaching subtler vibrational frequencies. And it's not going to be possible for coarser material bodies to draw together the material to make new bodies. And that will change humanity quite a bit. There will be fewer of the coarser bodies made. It's going to possibly make a big difference.
Would that hold true then that like higher beings can't incarnate if there's not enough fine material?
Yes, that's possible too. Yeah. Yeah, we have to draw together higher vibrational material, each of us, for whatever level we're at. I hadn't thought about that corollary.
But it also makes sense if a couple were trying to conceive through their meditation or their earthly practice, they could attract their higher being.
If they're setting themselves up to be good parents, it's almost a competition on the higher levels, Lawrence says, for good parents. That's such a big problem. So even very advanced souls come in and get brutalized as a child and never even catch up to where they were in previous lifetimes. Lawrence mentions that humanity is in the middle of working out a better approach to sexuality. The pendulum is swung from enforced restrictions to promiscuity, and it will swing back and forth again several times. Science, and a loving point of view, will eventually cause it to stabilize, and it's hope soon. And BK here makes a very interesting prediction. He says that by the year 2035, the Russian judicial system will be overhauled in order to much better support children and families, and that the United States will follow the example.
What year?
By 2035. Which is much sooner than it was 20 years ago. When I first read.
So Nancy said that?
That's in STK, in the Alice Bailey books. So just about out of time, I'm going to wrap this up here. This is the Aquarian age of groups. The personal love we can look forward to and try to build that way and free ourselves of personality problems with love. Have two Rainbow Bridge groups where we're working on this quite directly. The patterns of thought, emotional and mental material that go along with these bad assumptions like, if I love you, you have to do this for me. They're actual substance. They stick with us, and they stay with us from lifetime to lifetime until we work them out. They are called skandhas, they're different names, thought forms. Well, we have to work on clearing those out. What clears them out is to expose them to the light, because at the core of each of these is a wrong idea, a bad interpretation of reality. Some experience that we had in our lesser developed selves caused us to conclude, I'm not lovable. Or love is something I can possess and barter with and get what I want with. People draw some horrible conclusions, but those still affect their thinking, even if they've freed their minds in a lot of ways. Until you clear that out of the depths of your subconscious, it's going to affect you. So we work in these groups on trying to clear them. The technique is very powerful. We work together as a group for quite a while before we can do this, until there's a pretty good feeling of love among the people there. But then we use certain phrases. We get the soul invoked, the light poured in, get ourselves oriented and linked together, and then we use these phrases to actually stimulate negative patterns. But we overstimulate them. We pour soul energy into them, bring them out in light, and destroy them. It's a technique worked out by my grandparents in the Rainbow Bridge books. We make statements to each other that fill in blanks with particular words, like, I always do everything for you, and you never do anything for me. You know, in a relationship, those are fighting words, right? You're going to have a fight as soon as you say that. Well, that's because it's pushing buttons, and those buttons are the patterns, the emotional and mental material that's congealed into something negative in your life. So you've got to wipe it out. So our group actually made it all the way through all the lines of the word do. So we cleaned up a lot of patterns that have the word do. We started with the word love. And that is so powerful. We'll say statements to each other like, I always desire to love everything about you, and you never love anything about me. And just to say that to somebody stimulates patterns. To hear it stimulates more patterns. You've got to keep the soul focused and we keep it a high level focus when we say those things. And we're working through them. You know, we use the spiritual vortex afterwards, visualizing a big swirling white energy vortex that swirls down through and sweeps away all the stuff we've broken away. When we say these things, you can feel the slimy stuff come up. You know, we said another one. You just changed the preposition of that last one. I always desire to love everything but you, and you never love anything but me. Those kind of statements are powerful. They dig up the old stuff. So that kind of work really, to me, has been really productive. And I'm looking forward to getting all through all the lines and clearing up a bunch of stuff about love. Something else we do in our meditation is, and please join me in this if you'd like, we visualize a big golden chalice floating in the center of the group. It's enormous, it's just floating there, and pouring into it from above is a stream of the pink energy of love. It's pouring into it, splashing into it. And next to it is a stream of the golden, bubbling energy of joy pouring in. They're right next to each other. They're filling it, overflowing, and it splashes over. Splashes everywhere. Because there's an infinite supply of love and joy, just waiting for us to be able to ask for it, use it. And it's just pouring and filling up this big chalice. Now, let's think of the people we love. Think of the people in your heart, and let's send it out to them. In the group, we'll say their names out loud or to ourselves, but just think of the people you love, or anybody you know needs love and joy. Imagine this energy streaming out from this room to those people. Really, an old word for this is to bless people. That's what we're doing. And we can also pour this energy over our own heads. It's for us too. So imagine a big saucepan or ladle or whatever, and scoop it out and pour it over your own head. And absorb as much love and joy as you can. There's no limit. This is the one thing it's okay to ask for, and be greedy about. Because it's okay to have love and joy. It's okay to ask for it. It's okay to have as much as you can. It just makes it that much easier to share. So the supply of love and joy is infinite. Let's just keep letting it flow into us and out through us. And that's the end of my talk. You're free to go, but I'll stick around for questions.
One question. So what do you say that love is central to YC's writings?
I'd say it is. If you read some of those quotes, this is the thing about Lawrence. He demolishes all of these philosophies and religions and things. He's really kind of ruthless as he destroys these, what he calls them ideologies, like idiocy, these beliefs of humanity. And so you think of him as being harsh, but love is really actually a big part of what he's saying.
Love
That's
is
the trick with the
wisdom.
quotes. Love, wisdom, they're reunited in this.
Is wisdom love? I mean,
It's,
how
yeah,
do you,
there's,
when you talk about love and then you talk about, you break it down, there's so many words around like two positive words. Are those all like love and umbrella, did you say, or?
it's safe to say love holds it all together. You know, it would all fly apart without it.
Because I guess if you said love is unity,
Love is, yeah, it's recognizing unity.
so
For
that
us,
would
love is,
be all the qualities you need for unity to thrive.
absolutely, right? How can there be unity without love?
So you think wisdom is a form of love, it's like seeing things through love, so you can see it clearly?
Wisdom is love in action, I think. Love and understanding.
Are there types of love? Because we grew up listening to things about mother's love.
We love pizza.
And we love food, and we love chocolate, and we love our neighbor, and we love, but are there, love is such a huge term. You know, to say I love my neighbor would be different than to say I love my husband, to me. There's a connotation there.
We love different ones. We love our loved ones more than we love other people. Lord just says that it's important not to love others more than yourself.
Right.
It's
You don't
not
have
your way.
self-love, you can't have love.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but to me, when I hear the word love, it's just this, it's huge.
I know. Well,
Like, how do you equate, put a scale on
let
it?
it expand you.
Yeah,
Let its hugeness just grow your heart, you know?
yeah.
Let love make you bigger.
Didn't Lawrence say something in here about like, maybe we start by loving one other person and kind of those feelings, but then the idea is to expand that to
Right.
as big of a picture as you can. But what's the roadmap for that?
Well, it seems like a sequence of loving a parent, loving siblings, loving family, loving group, community, the culture, the nation. The world citizens seems to be made for the destiny of a bigger love.
The bigger love comes up through the heart chakra, doesn't it? You said that it stopped in sexuality at the heart chakra.
Well, that's when people raise the sacral plexus, only the heart chakra. And because the sacral plexus energy has yet to make it to the throat chakra, that's where it's really headed, the creative center of the throat.
Yes.
But the solar plexus emotional energy rises to the heart center.
Oh.
That's where that relationship is. And you know, a lot of the heart problems people have these days are because there's so much new emphasis on love, and people are trying to use the energy of their hearts, and it's unavoidable, but it's a good sign, actually.
How do you convert all the emotion of the solar plexus into the heart chakra and eventually turn it into a how do
Well, maybe you could use the same technique my grandfather taught me about the sacral plexus energies. He said, just imagine using your hands to lift those energies up. Just lift them up to your throat, you know?
What's the significance of getting them to your throat so you can verbalize them?
Because the throat is a creative center, and so is the sacral plexus. Sexual energy is creative fundamentally. So you're transforming one kind of creative energy into another. And then it gets expressed through the arms and hands and words,
Action.
action.
the same?
Sublimation is another name for it.
Humanity is always looking for the recipe, aren't we?
There are so many recipes they're not going to give us until we're really ready.
How's the Dalai Lama look at it? You know?
How does he look at love?
I just look at it.
I don't know.
Happiness.
I think he's an exponent of love. I mean, it's part of the Tibetan tradition to strive for the enlightenment of all sentient beings, and that's a loving approach, I think.
He says that his religion is kindness.
Kindness. Yeah, you know, I didn't really talk about that much in the talk, but being kind to the grocery clerk, you know, being kind to everybody is an aspect of love that goes a long way.
Like when you first started this, you said about being conscious, like we're conscious and not just pulled automatically. That seems to relate to the Dalai Lama because he was asked once, you know, how he has effect on people, and he said, I just listen. He's just there. He's paying attention. He's not coming to conclusions or he doesn't already have it figured out. He's just open.
He's probably one of those people you can just feel his love.
Lives in the now.
Yeah.
But he says he still has to work on it. That sometimes he'll have a negative reaction to a person, but then he'll come up with something where they're superior to him. Like he'll say, well, that person has a lot more hair than
He's pulling the love out of them.
Which means even more to me that, you know, even he's so evolved, but yet it's not like every moment is easy. You know, he still has to work at it too.
Yeah,
And he's
this
honest enough to say that.
this is the hard place, the physical life for everybody.
You said the US and UK is wisdom and love, and how do you come to like they go and
So,
attack another country for their benefit?
Yeah.
well, the personality energy of Britain is the first trait, the energy of will and the destroying aspect of military and politics.
But then you said that they are wisdom and love, no?
That's the soul energy of Britain. And the soul energy is not all that much expressed yet in countries. The United States isn't expressing its love energy all that well like it is.
Thank you very much today for your expressions about love.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So what about nation? I don't know if this has any relevance, but the horrible earthquake and the horrible experience in Japan, does that say something about where they are in their?
Not for us to judge. That's
I
not,
can say something in Korean, just kidding.
I mean, whether something is coming to them or not, humans are not in a position to judge whether, you know, somebody killed too many whales and this, the earthquake. That's definitely, I've seen that kind of thing. It's just
Well,
not-
there's cause and effect, but there also, I believe there's karma in the countries.
There is, and
A lot of-
when Atlantis went down, the hierarchy was asked, well, how can we drown all these people? And the answer was, we could have drowned them 10 times over, it wouldn't have worked off the karma attack.
Wow.
But we had actually worked off most of our Atlantean karma, and that's why the Theosophical Society and the Masters were able to bring back through the teaching again. It was about the late 1700s when we finally worked off Atlantean.
I heard Atlanteans are some like Oriental, they're reincarnated as aliens or something, is it true?
Well, all of us reincarnate all races. Yeah. We've all probably been incarnated in India, and China, and Africa.
And Lawrence said, I think he used the word Oriental, and Oriental people didn't overcome their emotionality. Is he talking about Asians or is he talking about Atlanteans?
I don't know, I have to
He
see
used
the
the word
context.
Oriental,
But he's,
and he said Greek people are more, he was comparing Oriental to Greek. And
well, I have to find that for me. I can see what I can make out of it.
If you were gonna get one book by Lawrence to start reading, which one would you get?
Well, it's all online,
I
available
mean,
there, but
I'm old, I
You want
need
a
to
quick
hold a
book?
book.
I get the knowledge of reality.
The
It's
knowledge.
got, the Philosopher's Stone has got more of the cosmology, but that can be kind of distracting when you're really just trying to see where it is in the world right now.
Knowledge of reality.
well, did you say Christ anchored love, brotherhood, but before that, Buddha taught how to think? Is it what you
Yeah,
said?
he taught right thinking and right action,
Oh,
Reason.
the eightfold path. Right?
And would that
That's
be
beautiful
the
stuff.
first grade and the second grade?
Well, it was more like the wisdom aspect of the second ray, versus like the love aspect. Because the second ray is called love wisdom.
Wait,
Second
when you
part.
said it, it was kind of funny because I met a little Cantonese girl from Hong Kong, and she said, I don't believe Jesus. And I said, why? She said, everything Buddha says makes sense in the brain, but Jesus spoke about only love and nothing else. That's what she said.
But if you
Well,
really
yes,
study
but we'll
Buddha,
get-
Buddha
Yeah,
said,
no, but she said it as a little girl, she
That's
said it
pretty
like, it was very.
Buddha said everything Christ said, but he said it 400 years sooner.
Not exactly the same.
The emphasis of Christ's incarnation was on love, and it's right, it's true, he wasn't really so much trying to teach right behavior. That came, the church just totally blew it, trying
Right,
to graft
that
that
was
onto
what she
his
was
teaching.
saying, that, what Bible says, there's a lot of parables that doesn't make sense.
I mean, just grafting the Old Testament onto the New, that was what I consider
Yeah,
a
things
horrible
like
thing.
that bothered me, that scripture you just quoted when I first read it. What do you mean by all the wine said? I never drank wine at the time. And you said that the Christ picked people to work for him, but they didn't have open heart. Are you talking about 12 disciples or anybody else?
This is more of a recent project.
So I'm curious, who's that and what's the project?
Can you tell us?
I don't know that much more about it. I couldn't find a reference to it. It was either in the Theosophical books or Lawrence. But I could probably find it again. It's getting easier to find things. But the point of the story was the one I was making, that it's not enough just to be loving and kind. There's a lot more to it too. You have to be a together personality, making stuff happen. To really be of service, and that's the path of development. It takes lots of things, not just love. I mean, if you're trying to equip yourself to speak another language or be able to be more compassionate, all the kinds of things, that's all equipment that you need as a good server of the plan, you know. And I know that being a servant doesn't sound that glorious, but it's not a slavery thing either. It's completely by choice. That it's by when love really gets through to us, there's nothing else we want to do but help everybody else.
Is this when you were going to bring up Mother Teresa then?
I realized that that was a different talk that I was going to go
Okay.
There's something that I wanted to just throw in the pot here, that the Buddha Nichiren, who lived in Japan in the 13th century, said that you have the concept of the three treasures. There's the treasure of the physical body, the treasure of the storehouse, and whatever stuff you have. But what he said is that the treasure of the heart was the most important of all. So he was talking about love on a fundamental basis.
When you cultivate things, I think of the heart as things grow roots into. The things you love grow, that go deeper and deeper into the center of your heart and grow roots into your heart. This is the way I think of it.
Yeah.
But if you love something and let it grow deep roots, it's going to hurt when you pull it out. That's why you want to love things that can stay, the things that are permanent. You know? And cultivate them, pull the weeds. You know, you got to pull the weeds. It's possible to love things that aren't good for you at all.
What was it about matter and then by 7, like, all comes moving, energy, and matter,
That everything is matter and energy. They're the same thing. That the matter of a subtler world appears to us like energy.
And then, so then when we think of something, you know, with your consciousness, but the manifestation is done by, they became done by bringing.
Right.
So then, if we imagine something, visualization, are they bringing?
They're building it. They build everything.
So they work with our mental molecules.
They need us to give inspiration to the building.
It starts with a thought.
We came up with there's a great quote in those quotes. Our home as human beings is the mental plane. As mental beings, we are happy. Because that's our heaven world. We love it in the mental world. It's only when emotionality comes in and the lower stuff comes in that if we find ourselves unhappy, it's because of some other stuff on the lower worlds. But basically, mentally we're happy. And mentally we're the sons of fire, I guess is one of the terms we find in the books, you know. The fire of mind, and humanity provides that spark for creativity. That's kind of the masculine aspect, you know, the spark that's built by the feminine aspect of the humans.
So would you explain, let's say we're visualizing something, and then we have an idea, so then we plant a seed in the mental world, and how does David Kingdom bring it around?
They're just always waiting.
So then do we have to think a lot to give them a lot of building material, and then they build it, and then
Well, the more we think about it, energy follows thought, right? So the more we think about it, the more energy goes to whatever we're building. They don't endow with energy. That's up to us. We put the energy into what we create.
Were you talking about the hierarchy when you referred to they? The hierarchy?
In this discussion, it's about the David kingdom that builds all the elemental forms of our ideas and our imaginings and
The elementals like
even
the
the physical
fairies,
forms.
the angels, and.
That's the David kingdom. That heavenly bride, it's called, and hopefully David kingdom will be hooking up with its heavenly bride soon.
I used to entertain my child when she was little for hours on end. We'd go out to the backyard right at dusk and say, now you have to look under the leaves to find the fairies.
Oh.
And she would look and look and look, and she'd come back and she'd go, there are no fairies. So I always did a little something out there that was a little toy or something that she could look at as her fairy. But she still talks to me about, remember when you used to look for the fairies? And I look at her and say, I still do. But it's a different type now.
Well, you know, humanity is about to open up, like you're talking about, open up our etheric vision. A lot of people already have, and they don't come out and say it, or they get put away, right? But it's happening, it's developing, and actually, Lawrence mentions that that's going to end a lot of the worst sexual behavior, because people no longer have the privacy to do those things, because people can see just from looking at them what they've been up to.
They don't want to be sexual in front of someone.
Well, even if that's what you used to be doing, it's still visible in your field. And somebody who has a clear vision can see what you've been up to.
When's that gonna happen?
It's really better, I don't know. It's supposed to be pretty soon, this is the next development.
So don't
So that'll do away with pedophiles?
That was, it's light on the situation that does away with pedophiles. And that's why it's going away in the Catholic Church. It's becoming non-invisible. You have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what he says about anger and how to deal with anger.
Oh, I really wanted to get into some of that.
Lower worlds.
And this is something both Leonard Shaw taught and Jim Riddell teaches in a Lawrence group that is second and fourth Thursdays. We're always observing, we have objective senses, we have data. That data is neutral. It's the story we make up about the data that determines whether we get angry and what our reaction is. We have to make up a story. Leonard used to teach, life is not a two-step process. It's not, well, she insulted me, so I smacked her. That's a two-step process for angry guys, you know? It's really a three-step process. She said this, I made up the interpretation she was insulting my ego, and then I did this. There's always interpretation of what happens to you. That every emotion has a core thought. And so if you're aware of that core thought, you're aware of your reactions. You can take charge of your reactions to things. In anger, every time I've really been angry about something, I've been wrong. Turns out.
Push your butt. Is that core thought, that's your butt?
Yeah, it pushed the button, it got stimulated, and it wasn't part of a rational, it wasn't self-consciousness at work when that happened. That was automatic consciousness that stepped in and got me in trouble. So that self-consciousness, and what story do you tell yourself about what's happening to you? Jim Riddell hopefully will come and give a whole talk on that. It's very powerful.
Where does manipulation fall into this kind of stuff? Because like if the angry, somebody, let's say, I guess nobody can make you angry, but let's say someone makes you angry with certain behavior.
Right.
But then anger comes directly to the stomach and but then manipulation goes to kind of turn your head halfway, so then you want to feel it, right?
You get intercepted before it gets to your solar plexus. There's some story you told yourself that allowed your solar plexus energies to react. Some interpretation that says, I'm being threatened. If you can control your interpretation, then it will never make it that far. Never.
But how about like going to the head?
It's got to go through the head to get anywhere. So that's where you have to.
So then maybe I'm talking loud, that's why my head feels as a manipulation.
Just blocking it. Well, I'm gonna do that. I don't know about that.
I don't know.
So you send it light, the light energy to diffuse it?
Well, there's a great biblical quote. What is exposed to light becomes the light. There are a few gems in the Bible after all. Good question.
Yeah, I was wondering, you were talking about coarser beings not having to use children here. I like that stuff with interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are steadily refining our vehicles. the material of our bodies. It's an actual measure of our evolutionary progress is the quality of the material in our bodies. And especially emotionally, this is important. The lower emotional level material is repellent. It's the lowest kinds of emotions. We're trying to refine our emotional bodies because the upper level emotional material, the subtler, higher vibrational, is attractive. When all of humanity raises their emotional material to the higher frequencies, culture will break out. The culture of love and of beauty and aesthetics, the ones who control humanity through their lower nature, their fears and anger, will be powerless because they can't manipulate people through their lower emotions anymore. They're controlled.